Good morning and welcome to Beholden To Truth. It is your humble host Joshua here for a little bit of a different change of pace. I'm going to do a vlog coming at you from the official studio here. Usually my vlogs are from the car, and when you see me in this cozy little setup, it's because I'm sitting down doing a documentary or, a special episode with a lot of receipts and all that kind of stuff. Usually the casual vlogs, just talking about life in general, are coming at you from my mobile office outside of the gym, having my pre-workout, getting caffeinated. You guys know the drill. But the situation today is that it is 4:34 in the morning, and I've been up since about 3:30 in the morning. I went to bed around 9 or something like that. And to be honest, I just couldn't sleep. I woke up at 3:30, which is about 2.5 hours before I usually wake up, and I just couldn't fall back asleep. And I had all these things on my mind, so I figured, you know what? Why not just come and talk to you guys? You guys are my surrogate best friends, so whether you like it or not, you have to deal with whatever is on my mind. So we're gonna hang out this morning, and technically, I have a pre-workout. It's probably not what you're supposed to have in the morning as your caffeine drip. People get up and have coffee or they have tea or something like that. I'm gonna wake up and have a C4. Uh, but listen, when it comes to the artificially flavored, highly caffeinated cocktails, any time of day is the right time of day for me. And this is the strawberry, I think it's strawberry, what's that candy? Starburst? What does it say? Strawberry Blast. These are very, very good. Oh, that hits. C4 is a classic. It was my very first pre-workout 10 years ago, more than that. I remember working in my shitty little cubicle job, and this was back before I was like in love with fitness stuff. I was doing it because it's like, shit, I really don't want to do this stuff, but I know I need to take my physical health into my own hands. I'm getting older, and I don't really like the way I look. And so, I've tried it before. I tried to diet, I tried to exercise. Inevitably, after 2 or 3 weeks, I would fall off. And that was the story from like 17 to 27. So at 27 years old, I was just on YouTube looking for some music, and I found the song that I was looking for, but it came with it in the video a compilation of Aziz Shavershian, who is a well-known bodybuilder, also known as Ziz or Z's, who is now deceased, sadly. He died at like 23 years old. But he had a very similar backstory to me in that he was a largely sedentary, lazy video game nerd, unremarkable looking, scrawny as a twig, and he devoted himself to the fitness lifestyle. And in the very brief 3 years afterward, he developed a 1 in a million physique that went down in human history as one of the best physiques ever created. And I found that just because I was looking for a song that I liked. But his transformation resonated with me because he was living the same life that I was, the anti-athlete, video game addicted nobody. And if you would have looked at his before photos, you would have never said, that guy's clearly going to go on to become a fitness icon. Like nobody would have had that thought. And so I was like, all right, if somebody like that can transform their life so substantially in such a short period of time, relatively speaking, then, and he also explained in his videos, like what you need to do, how you need to eat, what kind of gym routine to run. And so I was like, well, if I just follow the advice that he said worked for him, what'll happen to me? And so I did. And that's not to say it was easy. I think I started out with a baseline commitment of I'm willing to train 3 days a week, no more than that. Like, I'm not going to sign myself up for being one of those guys who goes to the gym 5, 6, 7 days a week. Like, I just didn't. I didn't want to set myself up for failure. I knew I didn't have that kind of discipline or work ethic. And so I said, all right, I think I'm willing to sign up for 3 days a week. And that basically meant I never have to do it 2 days in a row. I was like, okay, I can basically work out every other day, sometimes even have 2 days off, and I can probably fit that into my weekly schedule. And I'm not here tonight to recap the entire 10-year journey and everything, but I started talking about those early days because I'm sipping on this C4 over here. And back then, like when I didn't like going to the gym, I was doing it like as a doctor's prescription, where a doctor tells you need to do this because it's healthy. And so nowadays I don't need that um summoning of willpower every day where it's like, oh shit, I gotta go to the gym. Oh my God. Yeah. I need hype up music. I need a pre-workout. I need something to put me in the right state of mind and all that. Like, I don't need that anymore. I look forward to my gym trip every day. I need my gym trip. There's a lot of other connected activities around my gym trip that help keep me consistent on a daily basis, just my overall daily routine. But back then, it was very much a daily ritual of like, all right, man, let's psych ourselves up. Let's turn on the right playlist. I developed this ritual. I mentioned, I mentioned I was working this cubicle job, shitty call center, and I would bring my pre-workout with me to work, my little tub of C4 that I got at Walmart for 20 bucks. And is that awful blue raz ice? I think it's called blue raspberry, something like that. And I'd bring that with me, and I'd have it sitting in my little cubicle desk. And at like 4:30 every day, when the work shift ends at 5, I would go get one of those red Dixie cups, fill it up with water, put the C4 in there, mix it up. I would go on YouTube, find some of Ziz's videos. It was a good compilation. It was like the pictures and progress pictures of him going from nothing to one of the best physiques in the world. But it also had some really good like electronic dance music, some very high tempo kind of stuff to get the blood moving. And so those last 30 minutes of every workday, I would be sipping on my pre-workout, listening to the music, and by the time 5 o'clock hit, like the caffeine would be in me, the beta alanine would be making my face tingle, and I would be like feeding to the gym, like, let's fucking go, man. I can't wait to crush this workout. And that's how things started. And I guess somewhat of a man of creature of habit, where I found that having a ritual, so to speak, and this isn't sacrilegious, I'm not saying it in that kind of way, but I'm saying like having a daily ritual or a daily routine that isn't just like showing up at the gym, but there's some stuff around it that kind of helps shift you from, all right, I was in work mode, I was in dad mode, I was in house mode, whatever it may be, to put you into a different time of day. Like, all right, these either 1 hour, 2 hour, however long you're going to block off, this is about checking out of all of those other responsibilities and checking into what I need to do to take care of myself and set some long-term goals. And so I fell into that cadence pretty early. And then I just repeated it in different forms throughout the rest of the next 10 years because I changed jobs 7 or 8 times over the next 10 years. I moved across the country. I've had at least 10 different gym memberships. I trained at home for parts of that. It went through the COVID lockdown stuff. So I always kind of figured out some way to build a routine, whether it was doing the pre workout thing at home. These days, you see me doing that in my car outside of the gym. There were times where I was working a graveyard shift, 3 p.m. to midnight. And so I would have to go to one of the 24-hour gyms and do it all after a 3 p.m. to midnight work shift. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there were years where I was getting up, having to be at work at 6:30, and after work I had to go to school, my college degree. So I worked from like 6:30 to I think 2:30 or 3 or something like that. Yeah, it's 2:30, and then by 3 p.m. I had to be at the college campus, and I'll go to school from 3 p.m. to 7 or 8 p.m. And so I was way too drained after all that to go to the gym. So I flipped it and I was going to the gym at 4:30 in the morning so that I could then go to the workplace at 6:30 so that I could then go to the workplace at 2:30, or I could then go to my college campus at 2:30 and 3. And so when I talk about work ethic and the grind mindset, I see a lot of entrepreneurial stuff on YouTube, guys talking about having the grind set with their entrepreneurial endeavors. And I'm not taking a jab at them. They're right. Like you do, no matter what you're trying to accomplish, if it's building and scaling a business, if it's radically transforming your physique, if it's trying to accelerate your traditional career, not as an entrepreneur, but as somebody who is, working for another company, all of those things require self-investment. And all of those things are allotted the same 24 hours a day. And in my opinion, and honestly, with my evidence of my life that I have lived, you can actually do them all simultaneously, but it does require that you become highly adept at time management. Like I said, for a period of 6 years, it wasn't even 4 years. It took me 6 years to get my college degree, partially because I was working full time 40 hours a week while getting my degree. And throughout those entire 6 years, I was hitting the gym 5, 6, 7 days a week. And so this is like exponential leveling up when it comes to manhood and becoming a fully fledged, competent, capable, healthy man. I know so many people who just silo on one goal and say, like, okay, these 4 years of my life are my college degree. And I'm going to take out a bunch of loans and I'm just going to focus on the college degree. I'm not going to work so that I can focus on my schoolwork. And then after that, they get out of school and they say, okay, now it's time to focus on my career. And so I'm going to go hard on the career stuff, or some of them will go hard on the entrepreneurial stuff. But with the fact that I got started out in actually trying to become a highly successful man in my late 20s, I always felt like I was working from behind. And I was, like, just mathematically speaking, there are a lot of guys who had a head start. They graduated high school at 18. Their parents paid for their college so they could actually just genuinely focus on going to school with no other responsibilities. They didn't have to worry about holding a job. And that's good for them, but that wasn't my life. And they graduated at 22, which allowed them to go straight into a career at a very early age. And by the time they're 26, 27, they're decent way into their career, making decent money, and the job stress has kind of been reduced because you're no longer at the entry level. And they could start incorporating some of those additional time intensive things like physical fitness and whatnot. But for me, I just neglected basically everything until I was 27 years old. I didn't have a college degree. I never exercised, and my career had topped out making $35,000 in a call center. And so when I had this unfortunate epiphany at 27 years old. Do you guys want to know the truth? Here's a here's some honest conversation, some vulnerability for you. Let me take a sip of this C4 and I'm going to tell you what really happened at 27 years old. Confession time, okay? All right, so here is the honest truth as to what happened when I was 27 years old. I didn't just look up one day and say, like, I got to change everything. I got to go back to college. I got to figure out some way to break through this ceiling at this job that has no future. I have to do something about my physical health because I'm not happy with the way I look and I know I'm eating like shit and I haven't exercised at all in my entire life. What happened was, so I had gotten into a relationship with this woman that I had met at work. And it wasn't a very long relationship. It was about 3 months. It was one of those very passionate and highly romanticized relationships where you think this is like, oh man, this is so clearly going to be my wife. This is the woman I've been waiting for. And, I was pretty head over heels for her. But after 3 months, she made the ultimate decision that I was not the one for her. And I wasn't so happy with that decision. It's not like I was like angry at her and it's not I'm not an angry guy, I'm not a violent guy or anything like that. I was just sad and disappointed, kind of emo honestly about it. But she gave me the feedback at the time that she didn't think that I was cut out for fatherhood. And you got to believe that that was just like a knife in my heart at that point in time, because even despite the fact that I didn't have a career to actually take care of a family, and I was not physically healthy, and I was not Christian, and if you would have put me in a situation to be a father, it would have been a pretty huge struggle. Probably wouldn't have been the best father at that point in time. And so it wasn't like she was wrong, but that doesn't change the fact that I had always wanted to be a dad ever since I was a kid. I've always wanted a family. And so the fact that I thought I found the woman I was going to do that with, and she just was, she gave me the blunt feedback. She did not really sugarcoat it. She was like, and she also had a kid already, by the way. So I would have been going like straight into fatherhood, Mr. Stepdad. And she told me after we dated for a few months that, like, I just don't really think you're father material. And I was like, ouch, that hurts. So I didn't really know what to do with that information other than sit around introspectively and a bit, sad about it. But then that sadness was pretty quickly shifted to introspection and looking honestly at myself for the first time and trying to see myself through her eyes. Because I mentioned we worked together, and she would see me kind of stumble into work, 5 minutes before my shift started, wearing, some kind of casual clothes, just threw them on right before work, not looking particularly professional. And she was probably not seeing somebody who was a super hardworking, disciplined individual. And I can't fault her for that. And even in the time that it was happening, I had to be honest with myself and say, like, if I was a woman looking for a man to provide for my children, and I saw myself at that point in time, I probably would have had the same anxieties too. Like, this guy is basically already as high as he can possibly get at the job that he has. And this place isn't really a place where you can have that large of a career arc, so to speak. Call centers, there's just not that many rungs on the ladder. Like, I was already a supervisor there. There was only two other positions higher than that. And that's a supervisor and then I'm sorry, a manager and the director of the call center. And the managers of the call center, there's only two or three of them, and the people get into those roles and they squat in them for like 6 years. So you're basically just waiting around, waiting for somebody to retire after 5 or 6 years to get a promotion once you're already a supervisor. And so that was a huge problem because I didn't have a college degree to break into a higher paying kind of industry. And there was just no path forward in terms of figuring out how to be a provider for a family for me there. And so she probably saw that, and she saw that I was not taking great care of myself. As I said, I wasn't Christian at the time. And so she gave me that feedback, and I was heartbroken over it, but I wasn't in denial about it. I was like, she's right. Like, this kind of sucks. I do want a family, but honestly, when a woman looks at me at this point in my life, she's probably not particularly inspired. She probably doesn't see a role model for her children, whether they're current children or future children. And so that's not her fault. And this is a maturity conversation because I know a lot of you guys, you've probably been broken up with before, and you probably think that there was just something wrong with her. How could she not like me? How could she not see my worth? I may not have that job right now, but that's her fault for not being able to see into the future that I would get that job, and that maybe one day I will start taking better care of myself, and one day I will be a devout man of faith and all this other. That's not her fault. Like, if you're not already those things, you don't get to criticize her for not just blindly believing without you having proved anything that you will possibly become those things. And I knew that at the time. I was like, as heartbreaking as it is, like I said, I felt like a knife in my heart, but I couldn't hold it against her because she was objectively right. And so I took inventory of my entire life, and I was like, you want to be an impressive man? You want to be a role model? You got to figure out a way to accelerate this career. Like, this is not going to be a long-term suitable career for you. So what that required was some humility in saying, You were the one who chose to drop out of college right after high school. You said you were going to do it your way. You're going to figure out a way to make a living without a college degree. You're going to prove everybody wrong. Okay, Mr. Ego, Mr. Know It All. How did that work out for you? It's been 10 years since high school. You're making $35,000 a year, and there's not really much opportunity for growth here. So maybe you should revisit that situation. And so that's what I did. I swallowed my pride and I enrolled in a local community college and I started going to courses. As I said before, I would go to work from like 6:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. My college classes would start at 3 p.m. and I would go until 7 or so at night. And that dragged on for 6 years. I got my associate's degree in the first 2 years, and then it took me the remaining 4 years to get the rest of the bachelor's degree. I ended up getting a bachelor's in business management because, though, I was working 40 hours a week. And, during that time, after getting the associate's degree, part of leveling up my career was having to make a huge leap of faith in moving across the country to pursue a potential job opportunity outside of the call center world. And I didn't yet have my bachelor's, but I did have that associate's degree in business management. And I had had that supervisory role. So a little bit of management, like actual job experience. And so the combination of those two things, I felt like I might be able to lock down a decent managerial job out west with some connections that I had. And so I sold everything I owned, moved out to Portland, Oregon in 2015 and found my way in the door in a place out there. And I can't go too deep into my career history just because there are people out there who will try to do me harm, sadly enough. I wish I could just tell you guys everything about everywhere I've worked and all the different jobs I've held and everything like that. But the far more important parts of this story are the humility, the swallowing of the pride and saying, I made some poor decisions. I made some immature decisions to neglect my physical health, to neglect my professional development, to neglect my education. And that's nobody else's fault than my own. Our country is at an inflection point. We can all feel it. And now is not the time to be a physically, mentally, or spiritually weak man. I've spent the last 10 years creating a blueprint for unfucking your life up, and it's a lot more than cleaning your room. How to achieve physical, mental, and spiritual mastery gives you a layman's understanding of how to master dieting and exercise, get the most out of your time, build ironclad mental fortitude, and leverage your faith to become a role model among men, something we desperately need right now in this time of war. I break down how to create a sustainable, flexible diet from scratch, how to organize your fitness routine, supplementation, and I dispel many myths and provide many red pills on dieting and exercise. The book is on sale right now at BEHOLDENTOTRUTH.com for 20% off. Or you can get a free copy if you're a founding member of my Substack, which would also include a one-on-one 30-minute session with yours truly where you can ask me anything. Go to BEHOLDENTOTRUTH.com right now to become the man that you were meant to be and the man that we desperately need you to be. I'm not going to be some black guy who sits around and saying like, well, shit, I ain't had no dad, no role model tell me what to do. It's all that's nonsense. I grew up in a single mother household as well. We grew up beneath the poverty line. I went to a majority black school. I ate free lunch. I wore my brother's hand-me-down used clothing throughout my entire childhood. So the money wasn't there for my college education, by the way. The 6 years I went to school, yeah, those were all loans. That was $60,000 worth of loans. Yet another self-investment, yet another leap of faith. These things are on you to do. It's not somebody else's responsibility to tell you that you need to do these things and I'm going to carry you through them, kicking and screaming and forcing you to do them. You got to man up. Like, that's just the honest truth. If you have to take out the loans to get the education, and I'm not a huge fan of the education system as it stands today, obviously, it's mostly indoctrination, but I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you a college degree. I'm just explaining that investing in yourself, taking bets on yourself, and putting yourself through years of delayed gratification and putting one brick down at a time in order to eventually build a castle. That's what it takes. And that's the exact same theme you will hear from if you go to YouTube and you look up tips from entrepreneurs. They're going to tell you that the amount of work ethic and focus, self belief, delayed gratification it requires to scale a career from nothing to a large business, it's not overnight. It takes a very long time, and it's built one small micro behavior within the day, within the hour, within the minute at a time. Likewise, if you go and look up any successful bodybuilder or anybody who has developed a less than 1%. Oh my goodness. This is what happens when you try to make a video at less than 5 o'clock in the morning. If you go and look up the fitness side of YouTube and look at some of these people's crazy physiques that they have, assuming they're the kind of vlog style channel, they'll tell you that that kind of thing isn't built quickly. That kind of thing isn't built with like half in, half out level of commitment. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, that doesn't work. If it's going to be a successful business or if it's going to be a radical transformation of the body, a radical transformation of the self, all of these things, you have to be all the way in. And some of the visual manifestations of being all the way in are willing to get up early in the morning. Can you even do that? Willing to work late into the night, willing to turn away opportunities such as social occasions. Hey, we're going out drinking. Hey, such and such is having everybody on their boat this weekend. We're all going bowling. We're all going to the club. You have to be able to turn away a lot of that leisure and entertainment in order to focus on your goals. And you're going to experience that when you're investing in your education because you need to stay home and study. You need to write the essays. You got to do the homework. I know it's not fun. It was fucking terrible for me. I was doing it while working 40 hours a week, while going to the gym 5, 6, 7 days a week. But now, with the benefit of hindsight and all of those things mostly in the rear view mirror, finally got the degree wrapped up, went through 10 years of incrementally improving my career to the point that I am now very, very blessed for the way that God has taken care of me and the path that He carved out for me. I have this, beautiful home, very comfortable life. When my hopefully future wife and children join me one day, they're going to be very well taken care of. The fact that the career has played out so well has enabled me to go and be bold and courageous in the truth in doing this work because I have that financial security. But none of that would be if 10 years ago, this woman didn't tell me, you got to shape up or ship out. Like, this is not acceptable. This whole tiny little career that you have where you can barely feed yourself, you're living in this little 2 bedroom apartment, you hate your own job, you're not particularly inspiring with anything that you've done in your life. What makes you think you're going to be a good father or husband? Like, maybe you have an attractive face. Maybe you're funny and you can make people laugh. Okay, what else you got? Like when it comes to actually being able to feed us, clothe us, shelter us, protect us, be a good mentor in the faith, be a good role model in terms of how to do all of those things for your son, such as being able to be a future provider for his wife and children one day. If you don't have the receipts to show that you can do those things, why would you sit around bitter and thinking that it's somebody else's fault, whether it's the girl or other people giving you feedback that, yeah, man, you're just not that impressive of a guy. And you guys know me, like I'm candid and I am not trying to insult anybody watching this. This is me speaking to my younger self. Like I'm being honest about who I was and why my life was far less enjoyable, far less fulfilling, far less inspiring. It's because I wasn't doing much. Like I was not doing much. I was not working hard. I was not committed. I had a goal to be a dad one day and to be married, but I had no plan to get there. There was no methodical approach about like, okay, I'm going to do this in my career and then I'm going to do this in my career. And simultaneous to that, here's the education that I need to enable all of that. And simultaneous to that, There's my physical health that I need to be taking care of. And I wasn't even intelligent enough back then to understand that by prioritizing your physical health, that's going to require that you get extremely good at time management and mental discipline, mental fortitude, turning away what you don't need in life, all of the extracurricular time consuming activities, all of the unnecessary expenses, all the fast food and restaurants and drinking and all that stuff. Like, if you want to accelerate as fast as possible and get the optimal use out of your time in terms of your physical transformation, there's a little bit of room for some of that fun stuff. And I'm not saying you have to go and live like a monk, but in terms of the habitual drinking and the habitual eating of garbage and the habitual eating of garbage food, like I said, there's a little bit of room for that, but it's going to be like 5% maybe. So by taking my fitness life seriously, that started improving my cognitive abilities and installing in me just basic precepts like discipline and delayed gratification, which then carry over into, oh, those same things are important when you're trying to get a college degree and you don't think this is worth it at the time, but it actually is in the long run. And the same is true for going and getting a tool belt of different skills that will enable your professional career. You're going to have to sit around YouTubing some stuff. You're going to have to read some books. You're going to have to find some mentors. You're going to have to put out hundreds and hundreds of job applications. I can't even begin to tell you guys how many job applications I've sent in the last 15 years, especially the last 10 years when I started taking my career seriously. It's literally thousands, thousands of job applications, resumes, cover letters, and then people see the end result, the really nice career, you get to work from home, it's high paying, it's low stress, all that stuff, and they think you just somehow got lucky. Somebody just called me one day and was like, "Hey, do you want this awesome high paying job where you get to work from home and create mostly your own schedule and it's low stress and you don't have to get suited up every day, you don't have to deal with traffic and all?" Like, that's not luck. That was engineered. That was thought out. I used to have to go to a work office every day, but post COVID, I found out that that wasn't necessary. And from that point on, I insisted that every job I ever applied for again, I was non negotiable. I said, I will only accept fully remote roles. I'll still travel occasionally as needed. But once I found out how working from home frees you up, especially in terms of having those simultaneous responsibilities of the fitness lifestyle, especially when you have simultaneous responsibilities of caring for others. Just taking care of my dog is already pretty time consuming. I have to get up and walk him in the morning. When I was going to the office, I would have to drive home, take him out in the afternoon for his afternoon walk. And then when you want to go straight to the gym after work, you can't because you need to come home and stop in on him. So you do that real quick. And it's just like a whole very difficult balancing of time. I did it because I had to. But eventually, once, in the post COVID era, I found out that a lot of this kind of work that I do can be done from home. That was a game changer. That made all of the time management so much easier. So I guess one of the big themes of this early morning, I'm not sure if it's late night when you start the vlog at 4 o'clock or if that's early morning, but the big theme here is if you're going to build anything big, anything that other people look at and admire, in my case, it is a very successful professional career. It is a large social media platform out there doing important political work and missionary work. And then it is the top tier level fitness, less than 1% of the world level of physical fitness. If you're going to do any of those things, it's going to require very, very small micro activities every day indefinitely. You just keep putting one brick down, one at a time, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, whether or not you're tired, whether or not you're motivated. This is another thing that was a big red pill for me. Early in the fitness days, I was watching YouTube content and a guy named Sadiq Hadzovic, who is a men's physique competitor. He had a little inspirational compilation And he was just talking about his advice for people who ask the question, I started working out, I started dieting, but, I just don't know how to stay motivated. Like, how do you stay motivated? And this is not just fitness and dieting. This is entrepreneurship, a normal professional career, whatever it is that you're trying to build long term. That long term goal, everybody struggles with the same thing. How do I stay motivated? It's easy. Like tonight, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, super excited. I got all these goals. I'm going to record another vlog, and then I got to get into the editing suite. I got to respond to you guys' DMs. I need to clip a 60-second reel. I need to do all of this stuff by 8 a.m. so that I can then switch into my full-time job mode. At some point in the day, I'll have to knock out my gym session. So, having that excitement in the middle of the night or sometimes right before you go to bed that, like, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to absolutely crush it. But then when tomorrow comes, the alarm goes off, whatever it is, that same motivation that you had yesterday, the night before, whatever, it's not there anymore. Or after a week or two of being consistent, the toll of it is starting to become realized. You're feeling sore. You're starting to miss the old food that you like. All your friends are calling you up saying, "Hey, we're doing this or that," and you're having what is it they call fear of missing out, FOMO. And so that's when those motivations that you had start to slip away. And the question is always, how do the people who are successful entrepreneurs, successful at building careers, successful at building great bodies, successful people, how do they stay motivated? You guys ready for the big red pill? This is going to change your life. It changed my life. As cheesy as it sounds, like just one little 60-second reel of a bodybuilder changed my life. It changed my whole perspective. The number one question you guys are asking me is, how can I wake people up? And you also ask, how can I help support you? And so I have a solution for both of those questions. You can head over to my Substack. You'll be able to get exclusive early access to all of my documentaries, my long format content, free ebooks, and even a chance to talk to me one-on-one. You can do Ask Me Anythings. There's several different membership options for your budget, whatever fits your lifestyle. Head on over and get yourself a subscription now. His advice was, motivation comes and goes. Motivation is like the starter log on the fire. When it's there, it's great as kindling to get things moving, but it's not something you can rely on to keep the flame over time. It's not something that is going to carry you through the nights where you didn't get enough sleep, the situations where you get laid off. It's not going to be enough to get you through bad breakups, and it's not going to be enough to get you through family tragedies. Life is going to happen. You're going to get tired. And when that happens, that's the moment when your motivation craters. Okay. When you get injured in the gym, that's when your motivation is going to sink. And that's when your discipline is going to have to be what carries you through. So he said, motivation comes and goes. When it's there, utilize it. Absolutely. But it is going to be discipline, which is the ability, it's basically a superpower to do what you know you need to do versus what you want to do. This is going to be your daily life. The discipline to put the right food into your mouth or the right amount of food into your mouth, the discipline to go to the gym rather than doing any number of other activities that are more fun and leisurely, the discipline to study if you're trying to work on your education, the discipline to carve out time and read scripture, the discipline to listen to sermons, the discipline to consume educational content when you do have some free time, to watch documentaries, stuff about history, that kind of thing, rather than the latest Marvel movie, some Netflix series. It's all going to be down to discipline of choosing the right things to do with your time and doing what doesn't necessarily sound fun right now, but it's what you know you need to do. Discipline is what makes you a successful person, not motivation. Motivation is like the wind. It seriously comes and goes. I have on my phone 50 different topics that I want to vlog about that at one point I was super motivated to record. And this is my backlog where I'm like, oh, that's a great idea to talk about in my next vlog. I'll put it down. And I had the discipline to go back to that whenever I need some kind of ideas, but that's just a very small illustration that it's like a strike of lightning. You can feel motivated towards a certain subject or a certain imperative at any point in time, but it's going to be your discipline that pulls you back to that when you get distracted, discouraged, whatever happens. The discipline is what keeps you on track. And so that's the big red pill, by the way. You see all these amazing fitness athletes or models or professional sports players, and they have these crazy bodies. Oh, well, the thing is that makes them so different than me is that somehow they just stayed motivated. No, absolutely not. There are plenty of days, even as somebody who loves the gym, even as somebody who enjoys cooking healthy food and stuff like that, there are still plenty of days where I don't feel motivated to go and do those things. But it is my discipline that says, I made a commitment to this. This is who I am. I am trying to be a role model for my future son. And now that I have the responsibilities of running this platform, I try to be a role model for you guys in living what I preach. I'm certainly not perfect. It's not to say I never have change of plans, especially with trying to balance the professional career and all the stuff. But big picture, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be your motivation that enables you to do what you need to do. It's going to be your discipline. And that's the beauty of the fitness lifestyle is it kind of beats out of you that idea that you think everybody who has a successful career, who's built a big business, who has a great physique, well, that's just because they were able to stay motivated somehow. No, it's because they stayed disciplined. Huge difference. I'm telling you, as soon as you accept that and start honestly self-reflecting about anytime you had this goal that you said you were going to take seriously and you said you were going to work on every day, every week, every month, whatever it may be, and you look up and it's been a month or it's been 6 months and you haven't meaningfully progressed against that goal, and you're what you're saying, I know what you want to say is, yeah, I just lost my motivation. No, you didn't. You weren't disciplined. That's the honest truth. Be honest about it, okay? I was honest about my life. I was not a disciplined man up until 27 years old. Like I'm not going to sit here and make myself seem like I was better than I was. I wasn't an impressive man. I didn't have the discipline to eat properly. I didn't have the discipline to invest in myself, in my education, in my career, or in my physical health. That's it. Like it was a lack of discipline. I didn't even have the discipline to prioritize getting enough sleep every night. I would prioritize leveling up a video game character over the amount of sleep I was getting every night, which then impaired my ability to go to work and be highly performative. It would impair my ability to go to school and pay attention and absorb the topics, and it would certainly impair my ability to be fully rested and even entertain the idea of getting some exercise. So that's just a thing. It's like it's just a motivation slash discipline confusion of, oh, well, everybody else who succeeds, that's because they just have some kind of special spirit of motivation. Sorry, no, that's not going to fly. I'm here to tell you that that myth has been busted. Real red the real red pill is success comes down to discipline, no matter what pillar of life you're talking about. You're not going to become a devout man of faith who's a role model for the Christian community who can go up there and do apologetics and defend the faith if you don't have the discipline to sit down and read the Bible. It's just not going to happen. How else are you going to memorize Bible verses? How else are you going to know what's in or out of the text? When people tell you, where does the Bible say that women shouldn't go out and work and this whole feminism thing is a lie? Where does the Bible say that? You need to be able to say, well, Titus chapter 2, Paul specifically says women should be in the home, taking care of their husband and taking care of the children. Like what are they going to do? They can be mad at Paul talking to Titus at that point, but they can't be mad at you. You're just providing the biblical evidence, right? And when they talk about, well, the opinions you have about the Jews don't sound very Christian. Like, well, that's an interesting thing to say, given that Jesus himself in Revelation, the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 9, and chapter 2, verse 9, both of these verses have Jesus himself referring to the Jews as the synagogue of Satan. And, there's a million different examples of being able to quote scripture where you're not going to be able to do that if you haven't had the discipline to sit down and read the text. And the same applies for your physical fitness life and your career. All these things, these aspects of self investment, they require delayed gratification. Ultimately, they require discipline. And so that's what you see me doing here now at 5:18 in the morning is building this whole platform one brick at a time. It's one vlog at a time. It's one 60-second reel at a time. I reshared a post on Instagram this morning that the last time I posted it, it went super viral and got 750,000 likes. This is such a good example because I posted it last time. It got 750,000 views, I should say, not likes. And the content of the reel is a Family Guy clip of saying like waking up in 2025, and it's Peter flipping on a light next to a window, and it's like the reel of all of the anti-Semitic memes, the Star of Remphan, Dancing Israeli, Synagogue of Satan, 9/11, JFK, USS Liberty, Jonathan Pollard. We can go down the greatest hits list of Israel's fine contributions to the American people. Um, that reel went viral last time, and then I added a caption to the top of it that said, "This is like me waking up in 2025 after having posted 2,200 posts about the Jews over the last 3 years." So that's like my subcaption on the meme. And I can't make that reel, that meme, that comment on the meme without it being true. People can look at my account and see, did he really make 2,200 posts over 3 years talking about the Jews? Oh shit, this guy actually did. Like it says it right here. There's 2,000. At this point, there's 2,500 posts because I posted that a few months ago. And so that's what I mean. Like you have to lay the bricks one at a time. In that case, that's 2,500 bricks laid over 3 years of consistency when nobody was paying attention, back when I had a handful of 100 followers, back when I was banned from streaming live the first time, and then the second time, and now the third time. Despite the suppression, despite all of the personal difficulties of running a platform like this, despite at times feeling like nobody cares what I'm doing, you do it because you feel it's important. You're not doing the physical transformation of self in the gym and growing your career and hopefully going out there and evangelizing and all that other stuff because you need people to affirm that you're doing the right things. You should be doing them because you know that they're the right things to do. And so I reshared that reel this morning because I had to update the post count. Now I'm at 2,500 Jew posts over the last 3 years. And now we're clocking a little over 40,000 followers, which I'm actually very surprised because I got capped at 39.3 when they hit me with the latest shadow ban for 90 days and renewed my live streaming ban for another year. I didn't think I was going to be able to gain any more followers for the next 90 days. Just when they pull you out of the algorithm, that's absolutely brutal. You're only shown to people who are already following you. So the only new followers you're going to get are from people sharing your content to other people who aren't yet following you. But the algorithm isn't going to serve you up in the like for you page of other people, or when they're scrolling through their little carousel of posts, they're not going to see it. But even despite that suppression, I've still picked up it was 39.3 and now I'm at 40.5. I've still picked up 1,000 new followers through the shadow ban. And that's all thanks to you guys because as I said, the algorithm at this point isn't helping at all and I can't go live. And so the fact that I'm still gaining that many new followers means that's very encouraging to me because that means that you guys are the growth. It's not Instagram helping me grow with the algorithm. That means it's you guys sharing the content through your DMs, putting them in your stories, remixing them, whatever else, whatever you guys are doing, You're the ones growing the account right now. And I would much rather that kind of growth than algorithmic growth. So I really do appreciate it. I was honestly ready to just concede that, all right, it is what it is. For the next 3 months, we'll be capped at 39.3 and we'll get back to growing after 3 months. But now it's looking like we might actually be able to continue progressing towards our goal of 50K. Not as fast as I would have if they would have just let me continue to grow organically, but either way, that's okay. I'm happy to slow down the progress so long as we're still moving forward. I think this morning I woke up and we were at 40.5. So that's, 1,200 new followers in it was about a week ago that I think I got shadow banned, maybe 7 to 10 days ago. So that's still very fast growth. I'm honestly just kind of shocked. So we'll see if that trend continues. I certainly hope it does. I was aiming for 50K by the end of this month, but that was before the suppression. So either way, it's not all about the number. It's just about, as I said, the consistent effort. Even if I get no new followers, I'm still going to be making the post. I'm still going to be doing live streams, long format vlogs. I'm going to be putting them on YouTube and Rumble and Substack. So nothing changes, just like all of the other previous times that I was banned, and I still kept posting because that's what enables me. That's the clout. That's the authenticity. That's how people know that I've been talking about these things for years, long before the Overton window shifted, long before it became acceptable for people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson to suddenly criticize Israel. Some of us have been doing this back when it was still highly, highly costly. And they're still not touching the necessary full extent of the problem in terms of just Jewish influence in general. It's not just the foreign nation of Israel, and it's not just Jonathan Greenblatt and the ADL, SPLC, Media Matters, Right Wing Watch censorship mafia, and it's not just who owns Pornhub, who owns Tinder, who owned Ashley Madison, Hugh Hefner. It's not just the obvious connections of the Jews with pornography. It's not just their connections with the movement of feminism. It's not just their endorsement of the civil rights movement. It's not just their creation of communism. It's not just their creation of Marxism. Start to sound like a broken record after a while, where you trace back every, and I mean literally every social ill in our country. You want to look at abortion, you want to look at gay marriage, pick one. You want to look at transgenderism, every single one traced back to the same tribe. And there are other people who have come to this conclusion. People in Germany, people in England, people in France, people in Spain, people over thousands of years, people in 109, 110 different countries, people on over 1,000 different occasions. They've all reached the same conclusions. How could we forget usury? How could we forget coin clipping? How could we forget well poisoning? All of these things. APAC. Oh man, their involvement with JFK. I mentioned before you got the USS Liberty, the involvement with 9/11. It's just never ending. The sheer number of subversive tactics, sociologically, politically, financially, through the education system, through the media, and it's just a blitzkrieg everywhere. Even big pharma. When you look at who is what's at the top of the pandemic, who owned Pfizer. Anyway, this vlog is not about all those topics, but we couldn't have a Beholden to Truth vlog without doing a little bit of Jew talk, could we? So I think that's going to wrap it up, you guys. It's about 5:30. I need to get into the editing suite. I have two other vlogs. I actually have one vlog already recorded. I did an interview yesterday that I am very excited to share with you guys with a guy named Aaron, who is the CEO of Biogenesis Laboratories. And we did about a 2 hour conversation fitness life, about fitness lifestyle and several other topics. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy that because the intent of that interview is to show you guys role models who are devout men of faith, who are white and want to stand up for white civilization, and they are fearless. They have the courage to go into public and say, I, as a business owner, or just I, as a father and husband who's trying to care for my family, those things are important to me, but I am not going to say that they're so important that I have to be quiet about these issues. I've talked many, many times about everything I have risked to do this work. What we need are men of all trades in all walks of life, some with families, some not, some entrepreneurs, some in the normal corporate sector, some in official politics, some as amateur pundits like myself. Everybody has to stand up and everybody has something to lose. I understand that. Whether it's as simple as reputation, friends and family and romantic relationships, there's a financial component to it, there's all the professional risk, all the stuff I talk about all the time. We understand that. We all don't like the fact that it's so risky to go out there and advocate for white people and so risky to go out there and just talk openly about Jewish people and the way that they work nepotistically, and most times in a conflict of interest to whites and Christians and America as a nation. I understand that it takes some courage to do that, but that's the purpose of the interview that I did, was to show you guys that there are people, I'm not the only one, who are willing to put their business on the line and their reputation to do the right thing. And so we're trying to pull you guys up and say, wherever you are, if you're a college student, but you're worried about what Susie will think of you because you want to try to have a shot at dating her, if she found out that you have these radical opinions, or what the whole class will think about you if they found out you have these radical opinions about white people or about Jews or whatever. Or if you're already in the professional world and you're worried about doing this stuff on the side, or if you're a business owner and you're worried about what people will think about your business and try to go after you, or if you want to get into politics and you're worried about how these things could be used against you, or if you want to be involved in the church life and you're worried about how these things could be used against you, we have to break through that. We have to. The age of reputational blackmail, slander, calling people Nazis, white supremacists, oh, he's just like Hitler. What we are seeing happening in real time is those tactics are starting to no longer work. The censorship mafia is losing its power. And we have people to thank for that. People like Nick, people like Kanye, people like Dan Blitzerian, people like Jake Shields, many others, people who have been role models to us and saying, I'm going to go put everything I have on the line and I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to stop talking about these issues. That's who we're trying to pull up in the ranks. The students, the people in the workforce, the entrepreneurs, the people in the church. And by people, I'm particularly referring to the white men, the white Christian men, ideally. So I'll be serving that interview up for you guys here in the next week or so, and you're going to love Aaron. He's a great guy. He has a great business philosophy, and we're all on the same page in terms of our political priorities and our religious priorities, and even our practical priorities, the fitness lifestyle as well. So that was kind of how we got connected, was like, damn, dude, we stand for the exact same things. And so I wanted to sit down and talk to him as an entrepreneur and provide him a platform to talk about his business, but also illustrate to you guys that there are courageous men out there. They're amongst us. There's far more than you think. He's not the only one that I've heard from. And so hopefully I can do a bit more of that, of platforming men who are bold enough to go out there and stand on truth, even if it introduces some risk into their life. Assuming you're articulate, the risk is actually pretty over exaggerated. That's the hard thing, though, is becoming articulate. I mean, you actually do need to be biblically read and you need to be practiced in the art of articulation in terms of political issues and being able to articulate rationally, morally, having objective arguments that are based on data and also biblically backed with scripture. Those things will get you out of some pretty hot situations. They've gotten me out of hot situations when my career was attacked and when I had family members and friends and stuff saying that I was an evil, awful person. What's really helpful is to say that here's where my opinions are coming from. They're coming from either socioeconomic data, the FBI, the Department of Justice, whatever it may be, the United States Census Bureau, or it's coming straight from this Bible verse or this collection of Bible verses. And so, if that's the case, if that's where your arguments are coming from, then it's not that they have a problem with you, and you should be telling them this, that if you have a problem with what I say about women being at home and not participating in politics, prioritizing supporting their husband and raising children in the home, that's not a problem you have with Josh. That's a problem you have with St. Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, who communicated directly with God himself. Like that's not a problem you have with Josh and his misogynist opinions. And if you have a problem with it when I say Christianity is the only valid religion, everything else is idolatry, and you're risking eternal damnation and separation from God if you're not a Christian. If you have a problem with that, that's once again, that's not a problem with Josh and his radical opinion. You have a problem with Jesus Christ because in the book of John, Jesus says in chapter 14, verse 6, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. All right, it's right there. It's as plain as day. It's 100% exclusionary to all other religions. Nobody comes to the Father except through me being Jesus. And so that's how you navigate those kind of confrontational conversations. Well, what do you just hate Muslims? You hate Jews? You hate Hindus? You hate Buddhists? You hate atheists? I don't hate anybody. I am telling you what the Bible says. I am telling you what Jesus himself said when he walked the earth. It's right there. He said there's no way to know God other than knowing Jesus. So you don't have a problem with me, in my opinion. You have a problem with the words that Jesus said. And that immediately shuts down most counter arguments because then they have to confess that, like, okay, it is true. I just have a problem with Christianity. I may not like the fact that this guy is a Christian, but now I see where his worldview comes from is the Bible. And so my problem is the Bible. And that requires them to go and do a self assessment on their own outside of the conversation you're having. And a lot of times that'll be a sobering thing for them because whether it's the feminist thing, whether it's the exclusionary nature of Christianity, people have had a lot of resistance to sitting down reading the Bible because they've only heard about it, but they've never actually sat down and read it. And so if you're able to quote it directly, and especially tie it to these highly controversial topics like religious exclusion and feminism, and make those connections for people with citations, then they're going to have to say, it's not a matter of people misinterpreting the Bible for their own personal agenda. You just want to subjugate women and you want to oppress women. When the Bible talks, Paul again saying that women should not hold authority over men in Ephesians, providing those citations for people, there will be some who say, well, that's just a misinterpretation. It's like, well, have you actually sat down and read it? Why is it you weren't able to provide me the verse and I was able to provide it for you? Did you know that that's not the only verse that relates to that subject? Oh. This was important when I talked through the big Substack article about group behavior, also, where I was able to point out that rebuking entire groups of people, whether it's nationalities or religious groups of people, ethnic groups of people, and their group behavior, that's not unchristian. Jesus himself did that. Paul did that. All of the prophets did that. But you have to provide those citations and be confident with your argument. And so, once again, you're just pointing out to them, whether it's your employer saying, oh, these things you do in your personal time are very divisive, and we're worried about you being a radical extremist. And you're like, actually, I'm just a Christian. I'm doing the exact same things that Jesus did, and all of his disciples did, and all the prophets of the Old Testament did. And so, this is my faith. And so, if you're going to try to hold my faith against you, then we're going to be in a real tense conversation, and perhaps my lawyer should be here with me. You know what I'm saying? And the same is true for all the racial arguments, where you start talking about how all these other groups have self-advocacy organizations. They can wear a Black Pride, Black Power t-shirt and nobody gives two shits. They can go out there and say, Black people are the best. I love Black people. I really prefer to be around Black people. I want to marry a Black woman. I like Black culture, blah, 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 blah. When you're able to point out that hypocrisy and double standard, the fact that Jews call themselves God's chosen people, you guys want to talk about racial superiority, that white supremacy is a problem, yet there's a group of people who walk around calling themselves God's chosen people, and you have a problem with me saying that I love white people and I want to protect them? Really? How far is that argument going to go? So that's the articulation and stuff that you have to work on over time to make sure you can defend yourself when you go and do this work. That's going to wrap things up for this morning's vlog session. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Long trip down memory lane, kind of meandering, talked about a number of subjects, but I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to start working on this C4 over here, get into the editing suite for a couple hours, and then shift into my 9 to 5, knock out a gym session later on, and probably upload not this vlog, but one of the other vlogs that are already edited for you guys today for some entertainment. And until then, please do subscribe to the Substack. That's the primary way of supporting this channel. That's where the exclusive content launches early. You can get free access to ebooks and even a chance to talk to me 30 minutes one-on-one if you get a founding membership. So you can support the platform on Substack. Also follow on Instagram, Rumble, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and Rumble. That way you get a notification whenever I drop a new video. Trying to get at least 2 or 3 out per week. It's a lot, you guys, but there's a lot to talk about. And I have big goals for this entire business that I haven't even shared yet, stuff that's cooking in the background. So until next time, you guys, I love you guys. Christ is King.
Beholden to Truth. Christ culture. White identity. And fitness lifestyle. Red pilling the masses. On the front lines. Against the synagogue of Satan.